Let's do question number 6. The diagram shows the market for milk. Two conditions change. The cost of cattle feed rises sharply, and this is followed by the government raising the tax on cheese, which uses milk in its production. So now, and we have been given a demand and a price diagram. Which changes in position on the diagram of demand curves for milk are consistent with these events? So now let's analyze these events. The first event is that the cost of the cattle feed rises sharply. Now, in the market for milk, the cattle feed is actually an input. So, if the price of the input increases sharply, this means that the supply of milk in that market is going to decline. Now, so this diagram in front of us does not show the supply diagram. So, let's make a supply diagram on our own and let's see how this is being affected. So, if this is our demand and supply diagram in which we have quantity on the x-axis and we have price on the y-axis. If we plot a demand curve which is like this, let's name this D1, and then we plot a supply curve which is S1. Now when the supply reduces, that means that the supply curve shifts leftwards like this. So the supply curve shifts leftward like this, and we were now on this point and we have now moved over to this point. So in terms of the demand curve, there is a movement from this point to this point. Now if we look at our original diagram which has been given to us, we see that the only point in which there is a movement on the same demand curve is actually this, when we move from point X to point Z. So this is the effect of the first event. The second event is that this is followed by the government raising the tax on cheese, which uses milk in its production. Now milk and cheese, they are used together, and milk is actually an ingredient which is used in the making of cheese. Now if there's an increase in the tax on cheese, so that means that the demand for cheese is going to fall. So if the demand for cheese is going to fall, that means that the demand for milk is also going to fall. So that means that there is going to be a leftward movement of the demand curve. And let's see here. So we see that from this graph, we now move over to this graph like this. And this shows a leftward movement of the demand curve. And so we have a movement that means from point X to point Z. And then from point Z, we go to point Y. If we analyze the options, the only option that has this is option number C, which is the answer to this question.